Okay. So today's date is Saturday, March 8th, and my name is Adaeze Nwigwe, and I am interviewing Mary Cottman as a part of research with the University of Central Florida's Riches Project in cooperation with the City of Orlando's Parramore Speaks project. This interview is being conducted at the Callahan Neighborhood Center in Orlando, Florida, and Ms. Cottman has agreed to allow this interview to be recorded. So Ms. Cottman, could you start us off by telling me your full name?
Mary Frances Cottman.
Perfect. And then another thing I just want to say is that later in the interview we have an activity for you to do, and it will be for you to draw what you consider Parramore, but once we get there I'll explain more later. So
Okay.
just want to let you know. So with that, we'll just get started. So a good place to start is, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up?
I grew up 2 blocks from here on McFall Avenue, and I was born to the same address, and I still live there. I still love living there. I have 2 children that were born to the same address, and my parents moved to that address in 1947 and lived there until their demise. And it's my neighborhood, and I still love it. On my street, I am the resident that has been there the longest as of now. Some of the seniors that live there, they've passed on. And I think there's one other gentleman that he has lived there. I don't know how long his stay has been, but he says he's been there for a while.
And then just for the recording, could you repeat the address again?
424 McFall Avenue.
Let's see. So, do you know the story of how your family came to settle there? Or
I do. My parents were from a small town near Gainesville called Archer, Florida. And my mother said that she had lived in several places prior to meeting my father. And once they got married, she visited Orlando and decided that it was a beautiful city and that she wanted to move here. So she came, and they set up residence on McFall at a different numeric number, but I still have that house also, 422 McFall. That house is a wooden shotgun house, and no one lives in it, but I still have it. And then in 1960, they moved here in 47. They lived in that house until 1960, and then they built the house that I live in now. And my father worked on the railroad in Archer, Florida. So my mother came first, and he would come to visit until he could transfer and leave his job. So my mother was a homemaker, and she also rented rooms to the seasonal orange pickers. So I grew up in that atmosphere, and it was a good way to meet people from all over the world. And we had 5 to 7 rooming houses at any given time, and I was a part of the cleaning staff. We cleaned the rooms, and I cooked for the tenants. And it was a great childhood, just meeting people from all walks of life and from different areas that, as a kid you would dream about. I want to go to New York, so I met a lot of people from everywhere. That part about it I loved, and I'm grateful to my parents for rearing me in that atmosphere of hard work and meeting new people from everywhere.
it definitely sounds like your mom was involved in like entrepreneurship and having that business. So, I mean, you got into it a little bit, but could you describe more any of the challenges or the details that came behind running something like that or renting out rooms?
I don't think she saw it as a challenge, but when I look back on it, both my parents were elementary school educated, and I feel like they achieved a lot with the education that they had, third and fifth grade. And sometimes the challenge was the different personalities that you would run into in a rooming house. But we had long-term tenants. The longest term tenant that I can recall stayed for 27 years, just renting a room. So they were comfortable with that. Our routine would be that the buses would come from up north on the fruit picking season up there, which was apples. Then those same people would come to Florida to pick oranges, where now you hardly see an orange tree anywhere, but in my childhood, oranges were everywhere. So they would come down the street from where I now live to an area near Carter Street. There were a couple of landmarks there at the time, Green Parrot and the Dixie Duel. And that's where the buses would come in. Sometimes they would come in the middle of the night or whatever time they came in. My mother would wake me up and say, there's some fruit pickers at the door that need to get a room. And if they came and they didn't have money, she would give them a place to stay. And I would get up and cook them something. We would take them to whatever of our rooming houses that we had available rooms. And then they would work by the day picking fruit and pay her by the day until they could save up enough money to pay their rent by the week. So if there was a challenge, it was just different personalities. And other than that, though, it was just a good time in life, because at that time Orlando was smaller and we didn't have as many of the world challenges that we now face. You could leave your door open, everybody knew their neighbors, and it was a great place to grow up. But my mother would often say that in my lifetime, in my children's lifetime, that Orlando would grow to be young New York. That's what she called it. She said because everyone wants to come to Florida because, one, the weather is wonderful. It's a growing state. In Orlando, once Disney came about, really became a growing city. So people could come here from any walk of life and make a life for themselves in an easy way. If they wanted to, work, they could pick fruit, they could go to Disney. There were so many different opportunities, and she said the day will come when Orlando will be like New York. And now in my lifetime and my children's lifetime, I see and I understand exactly what she meant. But even with that, the Parramore area is still a great place to live. I walk the neighborhood. I know a lot of people in the neighborhood, and I still love this neighborhood. But I feel like it's shrinking by the day.
Definitely sounds like your mom saw the vision very early for what was going to happen.
She did.
And then, so speaking of the community, so there are a few questions and I'll circle back to some things, but from the community, so could you elaborate more on just how it felt growing up and your experiences, how connected you felt to the community?
Very connected, because there was the corner stores. You could walk up to the store. There were several churches in my neighborhood. And like I said, people knew each other. All of my neighbors knew my parents, and my parents knew my neighbors. So then as a child, you would get that, where are you going? I'm going to tell your mama. So to me, that was the beauty of our neighborhood. And I ended up an entrepreneur. Other than what my mother did, I after she passed, I did that. After both my parents passed, I did the rooming house situation. And the house that I mentioned earlier, the shotgun house, it was a licensed rooming house, licensed boarding house for a very long time. So I stayed into the same path that she had chosen for herself for a while. And at some point in time, I chose the career of cosmetology. And with that, I had a salon on Parramore and Federal, which is now the area where the school is, ACE, and it's directly down the street from the Callahan Center. I leased a building for 9 years and started my business there in 1992. I still have a salon, but I relocated to the Pine Hills area. So this is my 33rd year. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to have my business start in the Parramore area, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, and be a great part of it. And now I have I guess you would call it a third entrepreneurship. I have a food pantry, and it's called the Book of Ruth. And I operate it 3 days a week with my better half and a host of helpers. We have about 15 to 20 helpers that volunteer. And we operate our nonprofit, the Book of Ruth, in the Parramore area. It was created for my neighborhood by me because I once had the opportunity to go to a food pantry, and eventually I started helping at that food pantry. And I decided I want this for Parramore. I want this for my neighborhood. And I eventually got the opportunity to start a food pantry, and it's going so well. It feeds a lot of people, and I still get to meet people from all walks of life, and it's just a great feeling to be able to contribute to the neighborhood that I grew up in a different way. Other than making someone beautiful and making them smile, I get the opportunity to converse with different people. I get the opportunity to provide nutritious food because our food comes from a great source, and I get to share that with my children and my better half. So I feel blessed in all ways to have had participated in a business with my parents, and then owning my own beauty salon in the Parramore area, and now having a food pantry. And it's a lot of hard work, but it's so rewarding, very rewarding, and I would do it all over again.
That's amazing. And something I was going to ask too is, so since you've been so involved in the community, if you could talk more about the changes that you've seen in Parramore over time, because you've kind of mentioned it's shrinking a bit, but is there any other changes or continuities that you've seen?
Yes. Just as much as the area is shrinking to residents, it is growing in some positive ways, because we have 3 major sports arenas in our neighborhood. We have the place where the Orlando Magic plays, and that's nice. And we have the soccer stadium. I finally got a chance to go to a soccer game last year. And then we have Camping World. So I always tell my friends that if you are going to either of those 3 places, you can come to my house and park, because if you walk to the end of my street and you look to the east, you will see the Orlando Arena. If you look to the west, you will see Camping World. And if you peer around the corner, you will see the soccer stadium. That is progress. I'm not sure that all of that progress is great progress because it has displaced a lot of people from their homes, but that's what progress does. And a lot of the people that got displaced can't afford to better their situation because some of them were renters, some of them were families that more than likely, like my parents, intended on leaving their legacy in this neighborhood, but perhaps their family members sold their residence and moved away. And it is shrinking in that the growth, the investors are slowly buying us out. And that part is somewhat sad because I've seen so many different businesses that were thriving just die or get bought out. And there's just a small section of Parramore now that is struggling to survive. So if I could say there was a negative to the growth, the soccer stadium split the neighborhood. It was placed in the middle of Parramore. So you have to go around it. It's like a big block in the middle of the neighborhood. But I'm sure that there's some positive in that those places created some jobs for people, some jobs. I don't know necessarily that it created jobs for people from the neighborhood, because I know of a lot of people that work in those sports arenas that are not from Parramore. So I'm not really totally versed on what city government is doing and trying to do. We do have new highway area that is close to our neighborhood that brings the traffic to those sports arenas and brings a better flow of traffic. So I think it's going to be interesting for the future, probably for my children and my grandchildren whenever they come, to see how this neighborhood moves forward. Because right now, it's still standing, but it is still shrinking.
Yeah, it's a hard place to be in between, like a middle place.
Correct.
And then, so just in your opinion, how do you think are some ways that Parramore residents can get more involved in the community?
I'm not 100% sure there's a great answer for that, because there are a lot of people that live in the Parramore area, but those people, or some of the people, are not long-term residents, or they don't have home ownership. They're renters. And I think that perhaps their voices are not heard as it should be for improvement. And I'm not sure that I have a good answer for what they could do or how people could become more involved in growth. Everyone's involved in fun, but the growth of our neighborhoods is going to take a lot of diligent, hard work. And it's something that a few people can do. It takes a lot. And to get that many people involved, to get that many people pushing towards city government to make different improvements other than what outsiders that don't live in the neighborhood want is a big challenge, because everything that I just named, the sports arenas, I feel like they're controlled by what other people want that don't live in the neighborhood. So I'm not sure what those of us, which, like I said, on my street, I've been there the longest, but I'm one person. So I'm not sure what the few other people that live in this area that are homeowners can do. I just know that that number is shrinking just as fast, if not faster than the neighborhood, the long-term residents.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just always good to get your reflections.
Right.
Like somebody who's lived there as long as you, I think, has a good understanding of things and at least a good lay of the land, as they say. And then, so still in community, so it's just more, I guess we're pivoting more to your experiences again. So are there any significant stories or figures from like Parramore's past that have been inspiring to you or that are very memorable to you? And it could just be everyday people in the community too that really are memorable to you.
Yes. One of my neighbors of the past that knew my parents. So if there's a person that knew my parents, that person would have to be at least 100 years old. So one of my neighbors, her husband had a shoe shine shop on Parramore, around the corner from where I live now. And they lived on my street. So as she became elderly, her daughter came and moved her with her just for security and her mom not being home by herself. And I've had the privilege of seeing her at my beauty salon. She just passed away last year at 102. Her name is Ms. Williams. So I grew up knowing her. She knew my parents, and her husband had a thriving shoe shine shop on Parramore. There's some other people, I'm sure, that there's a church around the corner from me, and it still exists. The church I grew up in is still there, but I think it's outside people, I'm sure it is, that rent it, but it's still there. There's a couple of other businesses, a floral shop that's around the corner from where I live. She's still there. And that's a beautiful thing, to still have some businesses in our neighborhood that are still thriving and doing well. So there's a lot of positive, a lot of good still in the Parramore neighborhood. And it would be really nice if there were a way for new businesses, younger people to come in and open businesses in our neighborhood to keep the neighborhood alive and be willing to put in the hard work to keep them going. We have a barbershop that the person that owns that barbershop, he's really active in city government, and that's a good thing. But we need more younger people that are going to be dedicated to the long haul of keeping the neighborhood alive. It's a really nice place to live. You can still walk down the street at night. I still walk to Lake Eola Park, and that's the place that I've gone to my whole life, and it's still a beautiful place to be. So there's that.
Yeah, and that's very, it shows just how connected the community still is.
Yes.
Yeah, And then just to go back a little bit, just because you were mentioning your parents' education as well, so I was curious about your education and any that you had here or what schools you went to growing up.
Okay, that's the great part of my history. I went to Holden Street Elementary School, which is no longer there. Now the Orlando Police Department is located on that block. And that was when they had elementary school first through sixth grade. I went to, prior to going to Holden Street Elementary School, I went to a preschool that was ran by a lady named Miss O.C. And if you were privileged to go to her private preschool, you could go to school early. So I started at 5 instead of 6. And she had a small little preschool, but she was very recognized in the community for her educating our young people, really young. After attending Holden Street, I went to Cherokee Junior High School, which is a little bit further east of the Parramore area. And that was my junior high school, and had the great privilege after that to attend the great Jones High School, which is still there, it's still much improved. We just celebrated Pride Day, and I didn't attend, but I did look at different pictures from it, and it has grown immensely. Just tigers from all over the world coming back to celebrate Pride Day, and that was a privilege. My daughter attended Jones High School. My brother, that was a lot older than I, attended Jones High School, but he was the last class that walked from Callahan to Jones High, where it is now. So that's great history, because the last class of Jones High from Callahan, I think they were like the class of 1950 something. I'm not sure the total year, but he got to do that march from Parramore to where Jones is located on Rio Grande. And he was always a proud tiger. And he is no longer with us, but that's part of my family history. My daughter, her father, her aunts, and all of them, they were recipients of being tigers at Jones High. So it's just a beautiful thing to know that something still exists, and that people are proud to have their heritage spoken of from attending those schools. After leaving Jones High School, I went to Valencia Community College and got my AA degree. And I attended Florida Southern for a year or so, and then decided to go into cosmetology. So cosmetology has stuck with me. It has been my mainstay for 33 years. And I have a small salon with 8 chairs, and I'm grateful for it because I have coworkers. They're not my staff, they're independent contractors that rent a space, but they are beautiful people, and they have stayed the course with me. And my goal when I became a cosmetologist was to eventually open a small salon and just have an environment where customers felt comfortable coming to, that they could feel the love that the coworkers have for each other, and that I had great coworkers that wanted to be like family members to each other. And that is how it has happened, and I'm so grateful that I have that business. I'm grateful for my coworkers, and I'm grateful for the customers who have allowed us to create beauty in their lives. So it's thriving, it's successful, and my daughter is a cosmetologist, but she doesn't work at the salon. But I'm hoping that as I kept my mother and father's business alive for many, many years after they were gone, that my children would keep my business alive, because I worked very hard to establish it, and I still work hard to keep it going. And the food pantry too is very important because it touches so many people, and it's a free service. There's no fee. They can just come and get free food, and it's a very beautiful business to have. So educationally, that's what I did. Everything from my Parramore neighborhood, as close to as I could be to it. I could walk to my elementary school, my junior high school, and my high school. So it was convenient, and it's pleasing to know that at least my high school is still in existence, and it is running well. And there are future tigers that are still on the rise, and they're proud to be tigers.
And then with that, so a little bit more about your school experience. So could you tell me a little bit more about the extracurriculars or things you did for fun while you were in school, either elementary or high school?
Oh, of course. When I was in junior high school, I joined the choir because I like to sing. And I got a chance to sing at the First Baptist Church. The First Baptist Church is a church that when I sang at it, they were located downtown, and I still think they own that building, but they're now located in the Washington Shores area. It's a huge church. I got to sing there, and then upon going to Jones High School, I became a sugar lump. Mrs. Hogret affectionately called all of us sugar lumps. She was the choral director at Jones High School forever and ever and ever. She was my brother's classmate, my brother that I spoke of that walked from Callahan, when Jones High was located at Callahan, to Rio Grande, to the new school. They were classmates. And she was the wife of one of our ministers in the neighborhood. The church still exists there around the corner from me, but it's no longer that congregation. So I started singing in the choir at Jones and sang my whole 3-year tenure there. Enjoyed it. It was my opportunity to travel. And I think the one thing that all of us as choir members and sugar lumps could attest to is that we're all eternally grateful to Mrs. Hogret, because she was very no nonsense about everything. She was a great choral director, but it was the opportunity for a lot of us to travel that we would not have gotten. At least it was for me, because my parents were elderly and they weren't world travelers. So my first time out of the state was with the choir, and I so enjoyed it. My daughter, after me, became a choir member. In her senior year, she was Ms. Choir, and she was choir president. So there's great family history with Jones High in another way, in that my daughter got the opportunity to sing just as I did. and it was so enjoyable. We got to, in my turn there, go to sing at the Christmas tree lighting ceremony in DC. Many other trips that allowed me to see the world from a different side other than my small neighborhood of Parramore, and just to see how other people lived. And at that time, I probably never would have gotten an opportunity to go if I were not in the choir. So Mrs. Hogret, she was a great teacher, and she loved what she did. She put her whole heart into it. She did not have children of her own, but we were all just like her children, and she treated us well and loved all of us. I was the first attendee for the football team, a trainer, when they didn't have girl trainers at the time, but I was the first one. So I did that for a short period of time. Those were my main two extracurricular activities, but the choir was near and dear to my heart because it was such a big part of your day, your week. You had to practice before school, during a class in school, after school, and then if we were having any type of competition, you would have to go to choir practice at Miss Harger's house at the church on the weekends. So it was good for me because I lived right around the corner. But I enjoyed every minute of it. I learned so much. It was like an extension of what I grew up in as a child in my family business, learning new people, seeing this in the choir. I got a chance to go to some of those places that I only could dream about, that people from those places would tell me. So that was a great opportunity. And I'm grateful that my daughter got to experience it also.
That's great. And then also, just because I didn't get a chance to get into it earlier, but I wanted to clarify how many siblings you had, and then as well as children.
I grew up with two brothers, and they were somewhere between 20 and 30 years older than me. I have two children. I have a daughter. I'm sure she doesn't mind me telling her age. That is almost 50 now. I have a son that is in his early 20s. He's a student at UCF, and he's going to graduate in 2 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Charge on.
My two children are 25 years apart, and I always feel like I need to clarify, he's not an oops. It took me a long time to get to that, but I'm grateful for both of them. I'm grateful as a parent to have a boy and a girl. It gives you different experiences. And growing up with two older brothers that really felt like they were my dads, but they took very good care of me and gave me different experiences that my parents couldn't give because they were so much older. My parents were, and then my brothers were so much older. So, two brothers and me, and I have two children, a girl and a boy.
Just because we had been making references, I wanted to make sure they're out, so that's amazing. And then I guess history kind of repeats itself with the gaps. But
yes, it did. It really did repeat itself. I didn't plan it that way. It just kind of happened that way.
But hey, it's a blessing. Yeah.
It is such a blessing. And my daughter does not have children. So my son was just like her having a kid because she did not live with me when he was born, but she had him 24/7. I would have to call her and ask her, please bring him back so that I can see him. I let her have that privilege of having her brother at her beck and call whenever
That's her
she
baby.
wants. Yeah, he's her baby. Yes, she treated him just like a second mom. And I'm grateful for the fact that she got to experience motherhood through my son.
That's great. And then we just have a few like closing questions as well. So one thing I wanted to hit on, because the big theme has just been how you want to serve people and really make them happy within the community. And so I had to ask about a recognition you were given, the Notable Neighbor Award. And
Yes.
so I would love to hear more about that, and if you could tell me about the experience with that.
Okay. I didn't have a clue, first of all, that I was going to get that award. So on the Sunday, one of my pickups for food are on Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday. Tuesday, I have a food pantry at my salon in Pine Hills. Wednesday, I have a food pantry at my home address for the senior citizens. And I created, Senior Day is so near and dear to my heart because I guess because I grew up with older parents too. And I created Senior Day because I did not want the seniors to have to compete with anyone to come and get their food. I want them to have their day, their time, as slow as they want to be or whatever. And then I have Sunday as a day. So I'm losing my train of thought. Help me with the question.
So just the experience getting that award, the
Okay,
Notable
the
Neighbor Award. Yes.
So one Sunday, I got a phone call and said, where are you guys? Because we went to pick up our food from the store. And I said, I'm like less than 10 minutes away. I'm on I-4. We're coming back. And they were like, well, hurry up. Come on, come on. So the mayor came to give me the award, but he had a tight schedule, so he couldn't wait. So they didn't want to tell me why I needed to hurry up. Just hurry up, come hurry up.
That would have been helpful, but
Well, he had the seniors. It was on Wednesday. I take that back. He had the seniors agree to not telling me if they kept it a secret. He would let them take pictures with him. So all of the seniors pulled out their phones and got to take a picture with the mayor. That was on a Wednesday. And the young lady from city government, I knew she was there. I just didn't know. I thought she just stopped by to say hi and see how things were going. And she said, I can't wait. I'll come back another day. So I said, okay. So then time went on, maybe a month or two. And our district leader, Shan Rose, she came and presented the plaque to me. I'm not really one for awards. I'm a doer. I'm a giver. So that was very emotional for me because somebody was, recognizing my efforts. And it was really, really beautiful. So then they told me that you missed the mayor. He came on Senior Day to give you this award. But it was such a joy knowing that at least he came. And then it was an even greater joy that our district leader came back and bestowed it upon me, because it's such an overwhelming joy to be able to serve. Everybody is not meant to serve, and everybody can't serve. You have to have thick skin and patience to serve, because no matter how patient you are as a person or how deep your desires come from the heart, sometimes it can be a test of your will as to, are you really dedicated to this? And I've always said as a person that I'm very patient. So the food pantry is something that I find so easy to do. And I'm so blessed to have a mate. Can I tell you his name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
His name is Raleigh. Love it. He's from the Parramore neighborhood. And doing the food pantries with him has been such a joy because it's something that it's a ministry that we both enjoy. We've been doing it for 9 years now. He's from the Callahan neighborhood. So he grew up in Black Bottom. That's what they call across the street from the Callahan
We
neighborhood.
might have to get him later too.
Yeah. And he went to Jones High. He's a Tiger. And we went to the same school, believe it or not, and never spoke to each other. And I reconnected 10 years ago on Facebook. So Facebook has, it's good. But doing the food pantry with him and doing something that we both love has been a real strong point in our relationship because we both love it and we feed off of each other. And we always say there's never been a day that either of us got up and said, oh, I'm so tired of this. There's never been a day with that. It's just been a joy to, go pick up the food and see all the people, some with little kids, and get to know them and get to know some of their needs food-wise. It's just been a fabulous 9 years. And we're both senior citizens, so looking forward to see what the future holds as far as how much longer can we do this. And hopefully it's going to be a lot longer because we both enjoy it. If our health holds out, we're ready for the challenge of keeping it going. That in itself is like a icing on the cake to be able to provide good food, healthy food for the neighborhood that I grew up in, and to be able to share that with not only the people of the neighborhood, but my great helpers that help me week in, week out. They never say no. They're always on time. They're so dedicated. I have some helpers that have been 9 years helping. They don't get paid. They get some food, but just the fact that they are up for the challenge and they come ready to serve people. And in my little huddles, my little meetings, I always tell them, you have to have a heart for this because you have to treat each person, whether they're homeless or not, with the same respect. And you have to be able to sometimes swallow you and project your best, even when you might get a shopper, that's what we call them, the shoppers, that is not on their best day. We're not going to all be on the same great day at the same time sometimes. So to have that many helpers that are dedicated to the task, to have a great food source, and to have a mate that loves doing this with me, I couldn't ask for anything better. And to be able to do it in my neighborhood, my hood, that's what I always call it. there's nothing else that could be greater in life. And I feel privileged to be able to do this for as long as I have did it, and I hope that I can do it much longer. And I feel honored that city government saw fit to honor me and recognize that I am giving my heart and my all to the Parramore neighborhood.
I think it just shows the good that you can do right at home and
Correct.
how much can get done.
Yes.
Also, and then with that, so that's very amazing. And there is one activity, because as we're speaking about Parramore, this is part of the interview, yes. One activity is that we want to have some people define Parramore on the map. So to you, like, if you could circle on the map what you consider Parramore.
I don't know. I think the immediate area of Parramore is in here, but I think Parramore spreads out because there are a lot of residents or past residents that no longer stay in the immediate area, but they're still within blocks of that area, and those people still their hearts and minds are still connected to the Parramore neighborhood. So I'm gonna say, that Parramore might be as big as this.
And that's okay, yeah. Whatever you consider it as well. Yep. And that's the fun part of it, because just listening to your reasoning, somebody else might be more like sticking to the facts, and other people, like you said, their hearts and minds are still with Parramore here and those old residents. So that's kind of the spirit of the activity we're trying to capture.
Yes, I think it's shrinking, but it's shrinking in land use. It does not mean that it's shrinking in the hearts and minds of the people. And some of those people might have started in the core and have had to stretch out, but they take with them in their hearts and in their minds the core of where we all started, in the middle, because it was more close knit. So now Parramore is shrinking but spreading. That might be a good way to analyze it. That it is shrinking, and some people we can't help that. But it is spreading in that the mindset of the people that were in the middle we're taking it everywhere. Because I try very hard to represent myself and my neighborhood. Sometimes I even tell people, buy something and give it to someone else. Support your hood as much as you can. Just because I do it. I had a friend that I used to, before the food pantry, do more of actually cooking food and making plates for homeless and riding around and distributing water, food. So one day, I did that, and I did a post, and I said, sharing with my neighbors in my hood. And I think we gave out 70 or 80 plates of food that day, and always chill the water and a soda if I can afford it, and give that in addition to just, not just a plate of food. So this friend of mine went to a McDonald's, and he was inspired by my post and said he wanted to get I don't know, 100 hamburgers. So the manager came to the counter and said, okay, is this a joke? Please don't have me make 100 hamburgers and you don't take them and you walk away without paying. So, sir, I just want to know, are you really ordering 100 hamburgers? He said, yeah, I'm going to take them and distribute them to homeless people, just like my friend cooked and did this last week. So, to me, setting that example was a good thing, because that means that 100 other people got a hamburger the next weekend. And it's just all around a good thing.
And that's kind of perfect, just a story like that. I was like, I mean, of course you can add to it. I was like, that was one of my last questions, is what you would consider the legacy of Parramore.
I think the legacy of Parramore is that it's rich in culture, it's rich in people, and that there's still so much good to the neighborhood, and that it can still grow even though it's shrinking in land mass, what we call Parramore. That as long as we create historical avenues for our children and other people coming to our city to be able to look back on and say, this was our neighborhood, this is what it was about, this is what the people are about. That's what's most important. That it doesn't just disappear like a puff of smoke. I would love it if my children carried on, and that be the legacy of not just my family but my neighborhood, because that's what I'm doing. I still own what my parents left me 40 years ago when they passed away. I still live there, and I have acquired a little bit more land where I live at. But I would like to think that they would be proud of the fact that I've kept what they gave me and I've made it better. The shrinkage of the neighborhood might not allow that for my children in the long term, but for as long as they can hold on to it, I've asked them to stay here. Hold on to everything that your grandparents worked so hard to achieve and leave for you with that 3rd and 5th grade education, and what I have so diligently worked hard to keep and leave for you. You know, everything that I could do. So I would hope that there are other friends of the neighborhood, people of the neighborhood that have the same mindset, that they want Parramore to stay, continue, and grow. And it doesn't take a whole lot of people, but it does take a few to grow the neighborhood and to keep businesses alive in it, and to grow new ideas for the future.
Thank you. Yeah, I think definitely that theme of growth, and I definitely think your family can do it too. So, you know, just like Parramore, and as long as the spirit stays in the hearts and mind of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was basically all my questions. So the last thing I'll just ask is if there's anything more you want to add.
No, not really. I think we covered a lot of ground today. I think that my family, myself, have did some great contributions to the Parramore area, and I hope that futuristically I can continue to stay in good spirit and to project good spirit as a privileged resident of Parramore. I love still living here. I don't want to live anywhere else. I always say I'm centrally located. I can be on I-4 within a minute, the 408 within 2 minutes. I still love where I live. And I think it's a great place to be at any point in time in your life.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And then I'll just grab the cake. And so I'm just gonna double check if there's anything. Nope, we're good to go.